Alright guys, I'm just going to give you a quick little rundown of the area we're fishing right now. So at low tide, this is a mud flat. There is no water here at all. So the general depth at high tide is probably about 6 feet deep over here in the center. And at the edges over here, it's about 3 feet when the tide's all the way up. So the reason why I'm bringing you guys fishing over here is to show you that even though there's shallow bay, people might be put off by fishing in shallow bays, which shouldn't be, especially during the spring, is that there's plenty of fish to be caught, not just out more in the bay areas, like out more towards the ocean. So plenty of opportunity to catch fish way in the back, way less pressure, less crowded. So if you have a kayak, that's fantastic. You don't necessarily need one all the time. So right at the bank over here, so we're just south of Boston right now, so I'm just going to show you the anatomy of this area that I'm fishing. So you have this bank right here, so it goes from obviously there and it drops straight down to 4 feet. Then you have these little little cuts into the bank here. So a couple different things happen here. So there is obviously the feature is this drop off over here, which obviously houses the stripers' food sources or any predatory fish. It houses their the bait fish they're chasing, which in this case in this area is going to be spearing, or aka silver sides, mummy chogs, aka mud minnows. There's grass shrimp over here. There's tons of cinder worms in now, which is the primary prey item of these stripers, which makes them really hard to catch sometimes. So when the cinder worms are around, just try and use smaller baits. I have this little Ron Z soft plastic bait right here. I'll put the model in the description below. Alright, so these are the two lures I normally use when the cinder worm hatch happens. So first up is a Hoagie 3-inch soft poxy jig. So smaller, more mimics the size of a cinder worm. Just switch out the treble to a single hook. And next up is the Ron Z original soft plastic bait. It's they come in a couple different sizes, so 4-inch, 6-inch, and they work their way up. And it's paired with a 1/2 ounce jig head with you see the barbs, the bait keepers on there. So those are pretty important, I feel like. So, and that's really it. Just make sure the bait's on the jig head straight, and just keep it simple, guys. Smaller baits work best this time of year. Need to be using lighter equipment when you're casting this. So it's a little 7-foot Tsunami Carbon Shield 2. It's rated up to 1/2 ounce, so has good enough backbone to get these bigger fish in. I've gotten a couple mid 30-inch sized stripers in on it, no problem. So, and then a 15-pound braid fluorocarbon leader, which is, it's Daiwa fluorocarbon. I think it's 20 pounds. So nothing crazy, nothing too fancy. You could get away with the mono leader. You can even get away with not using braid at all as your main line, but I just like it because it helps me fling these really light baits out into the areas that I need to without having to drive so far into the fish and possibly scaring them. So cinder worms, so they're a little it almost looks like a sea worm or a small sandworm. They're about 1.5 to 2 inches long at max, and they usually start coming out in there, like coming out to spawn, I guess, about mid-April, when most of the stripers start showing up. So when the cinder worms are around, the stripers are a pain in the butt to catch. You'll see these stripers tailing, or you'll see them sipping the cinder worms off the top of the water. So it's really subtle when you see these stripers feeding on cinder worms. Sometimes it's just, you'll see just barely the mouth come out of the water of the striper. Sometimes you'll see them just going crazy on the cinder worms, but these stripers get so keyed in on these cinder worms that chucking even slightly larger baits, even like an SP minnow, any type of bait that does not resemble the shape of a cinder worm or the action of it, they won't touch it at all. So yeah, so they're very finicky about it. So just when you're retrieving these baits, so you could either just reel it in straight. You don't have to burn it in fast. Cinder worms, if you've ever seen them swimming around, they just do small circles. usually is the case, or they'll swim in these zigzag lines. But you don't have to burn these things in. These stripers aren't looking for things that are going a million miles. Sorry, I just got a bug in my eye. Aren't going a million miles an hour through the water. Definitely in the daytime, they're harder to catch when the cinder worms are around. And then as the sun sets, you can start chucking top waters and that type of thing. They're a little more open to that. So, yeah, banks, steep banks, don't be put off by fishing mud flats. So I'm hoping next week I can get out here when there's actually less water. I know it sounds crazy, but I like fishing near my house when there's barely 2 feet of water. I love it. I love seeing the stripers with their tails out of the water and they're poking their noses into the ground looking for seaworm or sandworms and crabs and that type of thing. I think it's pretty cool. So all right, let's get to some fishing. So right now I'm just looking for these stripers picking on cinder worms because that's what they're eating back here right now. So that's why I'm using a small bait today. So because I'm using a small bait, that doesn't always mean I'm gonna get a small fish. So you never know what you can get with a smaller bait like this, size-wise. Oh, there's one. That was on the drop. So yeah, a good mix of sizes of fish in here. It could be little tiny schoolies, or there could be 20-pound fish in here. And I'm just using my little Albie rod, that's all. It's a little 7-foot rod, Tsunami carbon shield with a 3000 reel with 15-pound test on it to fling these light baits out. Oop, come on. There it goes. That's it. All right. That looks like a fish right there. Yeah, you gotta look really carefully, but you'll see their tails sort of a little bit out of the water. Just the corner of the tail will be out. But they're all around me right now, but they're just super picky. You can either let it hit the bottom and pop it up, let it go back down like this, or you can just reel along and just do little twitches, or you can sort of burn it back a little bit quicker with pauses. It's really whatever the wherever the fish are in the mood for. Oh, that looks like one right there. I know you probably can't see that right in front of me. It's like to my right ahead of me right there, and there's definitely a fish's tail popping out of the water, but oh. They're here though, they're here. Oh, there we go. I just saw that one come up and grab something. They're just sipping stuff right off the top. Come here, bud. Ooh, come on. See, little tiny baby stripers, diaper stripers. So Some more fish tailing in front of me, so I'm just gonna pop this over there. Yeah, these fish aren't moving. It's very bizarre. I know a lot of people don't often see stuff like this in the back marshes and they miss it because they're out in the ocean fishing, but they spend a lot of time in these backwaters feeding on little tiny stuff. Look, this is tail right there, see? This is fun though, I like it. Good way to start off striper fishing. And they're just doing little tiny circles, scooping up these little cinder worms. Look, there's one right there. They're tailing right in front of the kayak. Oh, got him. Oh, it fell off. But it's crazy to see these fish biting like this. It's pretty, or feeding like this. It's cool stuff. There, fish. Nice little fish. Man, they're tearing this thing up. Up. This little fishy. This thing's toast. Might be able to salvage this thing for a little bit longer, just cut off the damaged part. Stripers they won't care too much about me doing that and taking some length off of that. And look, sort of as good as new. That's quick. See, right up against the shore over there. And they're eating little tiny baits. Like earlier, before I even started this video, I was chucking pretty large baits and they wanted nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. Look, it's two fish tailing behind me. Like I said, probably won't catch anything big today, but when they're eating cinder worms like this and you're using little baits in a place like this, you never know, you could catch something decent. I'm not looking for huge fish today. Oh, actually that might be a keeper, and I plan on keeping one Is that a... No, I'm not going to say anything. That was a bluefish. That looked just like a bluefish. Yeah, that thing's toast. So yeah, just using these little Ron Z lures right here. I'll put a link in the description below because I don't actually remember the name of it. So just measure out where the hook is supposed to come out. Push that bad boy straight down. Nope. And that's it. That's all you do. I got a bunch of different sizes of those Ron Z's. All right, let's see. I love the sound of these Daiwa reels. Yeah. Come on. Oh, I'm not ready yet. Come on, fish. Not a bad little fish. Nice little schoolie. Alright guys, so you made it to the end of the video on this video of how to catch stripers during a cinder worm hatch. So again, this cinder worm hatch thing is sort of situational and it depends on the area you're in. Near where I live, we get a pretty large cinder worm hatch, and I know down the Cape does as well. So in this video, there are cinder worms they're swimming around on the top of the water. The stripers were just sipping them off, and they weren't interested in any of the larger baits. I chucked at them just previous to starting filming this video. So like I chucked like Sabile Magic Swimmers, SP minnows. They did not want them, and as soon as I switched over to small soft plastics, seemed to work just fine. I caught almost every fish that I saw come up to the top, so, and then some. So if you're out in a kayak or if you're on shore, just walk around. If you know there's a cinder worm hatch happening, just listen, use your eyes, and you will more than likely see them. Sometimes when the stripers are feeding, it's really subtle. You'll see a little bit of a tail come up. You'll hear the stripers actually sucking the worms off the top of the water. And then sometimes there's just, the stripers are just going crazy, eating all the cinder worms like it's a little blitz. But yeah, small lures, don't have to go crazy, spending a tons of money on something to replicate those cinder worms. You could probably go in Walmart and find a bunch of small soft plastics that are meant for like largemouth bass and that type of thing. Or if you want to spend more money, you can probably buy sandworms or bloodworms and chuck those out as well on some sort of live bait rig, and you probably do fine. That's really all I got for you. And also, if you're a fly fisherman, you have plenty of flies to plenty of types of flies to imitate those bloodworms, and imagine there's ways to use flies on a regular spinning rod with like a float and that type of thing. It'll work fine. So next week I'm going to see if I can't sneak out to get some stripers topwater near my house, and then maybe even using some live eels and dropping them down to the bottom at night. That's really what I like to do. If I like striper fishing, but it's not my favorite. I'll do it just because it's more readily available. So yeah, if you guys like this video, please give a like and subscribe. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week, hopefully. Bye.